Happy Monday, Louisiana. Welcome to another edition of Odds and Ends here on bet.NOLA.com, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. I'm Zach Ewing, and with me here are Devin Jackson and Jim Derry. It was a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend of, well, I think for most of us, the things you love about Thanksgiving: food, family, and football. And it was lots of great football, especially once the Saints game was over with. Then we had lots of good football after that. And there's lots to talk about today, so let's get right to that. First of all, sort of the news of the day. Turns out there's a lot of reports flying around that Taysom Hill taking first-team reps at practice. Looks like the Saints are prepping for a quarterback change. They play Thursday again this week against the Cowboys. Jim, I know you're going to say this is long overdue. Now, Taysom Hill has been hurt, so that's sort of the caveat there, but it does look like he's going to be ready to go by Thursday.
Well, it gives them a chance to win, right? I mean, because they certainly didn't have one without him. And the good news to me is I think that it's also probably a sign. We don't know this, so this is pure speculation. I would think if Taysom Hill's coming back, there's a good chance that Alvin Kamara is coming back too. And if you get those two back, it gives you a legitimate chance. And I'd go as far to say I really like the Saints this week. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. And I think if you agree with me that now's the time to jump on this line that we'll get to in just a minute, because it's only going to go down, especially with all the news of the problems in Dallas with Mike McCarthy being out, several assistant coaches being missing, right tackle gone, and we don't know what the status of their wide receivers are. So if you like the Saints this week, if you think Taysom Hill is the answer and you think they can at least cover with a 5-point spread right now, now's the time to jump on them. It's not going to stay there very long.
Yeah, in fact, it's already moved down. It opened at 6.5 or 7 in some places, and is already down to 5. So we'll talk more about that as we go. Devin, from your perspective, what was the most notable thing of the weekend?
I think we didn't really get the clarity we were looking for in terms of the college football playoff race. Obviously, Oklahoma is eliminated, but still heading into the championship weekend, there's still a possibility Alabama still might get in. And Cincinnati might be on the outside looking in despite them winning out. So I think it's gotten a lot more complicated as we head into championship weekend, and we'll see how things unfold. Because I think that we're at the point, if the committee sees Alabama play toe-to-toe with Georgia, why not put them in the playoffs? So I think things have gotten a lot more complicated, I think, for the college football playoff heading into this weekend.
Yeah, we'll talk a lot about that as well. You are watching Odds and Ends on bet.NOLA.com. We're brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. Would like to let you know that you can sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook mobile app in advance of mobile betting going live in Louisiana. And you can do that by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. Get your $100 free bet bonus today. You help support this program and others like it. That's NOLA.com/Caesars. And if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment. We'll get to them as they come in. And give us a like or a subscribe as well if you like what you're seeing. The weekend ends tonight. It's a long football weekend. It does end tonight with Monday Night Football. Now, we'll talk about this too. Next Monday night, we have a great game, Patriots and Bills, one of the games of the year so far. This Monday night, not so much. The Seahawks, the broken down Seahawks and broken down Russell Wilson in Landover, Maryland to face the Washington football team. It is a pick'em. The over-under is 47.5, which seems high the way Seattle's been playing offense lately. I don't know, guys. What do you make of this?
I think that you're calling Russell Wilson broken down a little bit too quick there, Mr. Ewing. He's had 2 bad games coming off of an injury, but I think tonight is the night that he really is able to pick things up. I think the Seahawks match up well with Washington. I know they're hot, winning 2 games, especially one against Tampa Bay. But I like the Seahawks here. It's a good spot for them. The loser of this game to me is out. I mean, they're done. I mean, regardless, either way, one of these teams is going to have to go on a winning streak, and the football team has started doing that. But I think Seattle's going to get themselves back into this thing. I really have a feeling that is the case. I'm not saying they're going to get into the playoffs, but I think they have a chance, and I think that starts tonight at Washington. I like Seattle a lot, and I like the over. I think both teams are going to score. And I started Russell Wilson over Carson Wentz and Jalen Hurts in my fantasy league this week because I just have a sneaky suspicion this is his get right week.
Woo! Woo, I don't know, man. I don't know. We'll see. The problem is, too, their offensive line is not any good. They have no running game. I saw this stat earlier. I'm actually on Washington tonight, and so I guess I'll back it up with this. They have had 19 possessions since Russell Wilson came back, and they have 1 touchdown. And so even if it gets better, how much better is it going to have to get for them to actually win a football game? And the defense, frankly, not very good either. They gave up 410 yards to Arizona without Kyler Murray, without DeAndre Hopkins, and Washington.
Hence why I like the over.
Offense. I mean, you may be right. It may turn into a shootout, but I am on the football team tonight. Devin, break a tie for us. Jim likes Seattle.
I like Seattle as well. I think this has got to be the one game they get something going offensively. I feel like Russell Wilson's probably on the fence of whether or not he wants to stay with his team long term or not. And if they lose tonight, I think we pretty much have our answer. So this is an important game for Seattle. They have to have it to at least stay within a chance of making the playoffs. But I ultimately don't think they'll make it. They put themselves in too deep of a hole. But I think they win the game tonight against Washington.
So Devin saying that this could be it for Russell Wilson in Seattle if they don't win tonight. It may be it for him anyway. Frankly, we'll have to wait and find out about that. But and among his suitors in the offseason very well could be the New Orleans Saints, by the way. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit there. Talking about playoffs, it's interesting you guys mentioned that because I do have a segment later on playoff odds for NFC teams that we'll talk about. Some very, very interesting odds and sort of the free-for-all for the last 2 spots in the NFC. But first of all, as we always do on Odds and Ends on Monday afternoon, let's take a look back at the weekend that was. We will start in college football, and what a magical night at Tiger Stadium. LSU blew a lead. Looked like about the 4th game they were going to lose in the 4th quarter this year, but they got rescued. Max Johnson to Jare Jenkins in the final minutes. Actually, with 20 seconds left, they score that touchdown to beat Texas A&M 27-24. Send Ed Ogeron out a winner. He did announce after the game he will not coach the bowl game for LSU. It's going to be Brad Davis, the offensive line coach, who will coach that game. And the coaching search rolls on, guys. The big news of the weekend in college football, besides the games, Lincoln Riley, after Oklahoma loses, that game you see at the bottom there, comes out and says, no, I'm not going to be the next coach at LSU. But that didn't mean that he was staying at Oklahoma. 12 hours later, he was on a plane to LA to become the next coach at Southern Cal. So a wild weekend in the coaching search, too.
He wasn't lying, was he? He wasn't going to LSU. I mean, look, I think it's surprising because that LSU probably offered him quite a chunk of change to go there. But what it says to me is Lincoln Riley doesn't want to coach in the SEC. And Oklahoma's about to go into the SEC, and he doesn't want to be in that rat race, doesn't think he's can win, or whatever the case. If you're an LSU fan and he doesn't want to coach in the SEC, then you've got to be happy with this move, with his move, I guess. But now where does LSU go from here? And there's so many names on the list. I've got a bunch of texts from LSU alums and friends yesterday hoping it's Dave Aranda, but I think it's going to be somebody we're not even talking about. That's what I think. I think it's almost a done deal probably, and it's somebody we're not talking about, and I think it's going to be a major surprise.
A lot of the rumors today surround Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, which would qualify as a major surprise. I don't know how realistic that is. There are rumors that he's underpaid. Notre Dame's a private school, so you don't know exactly how much he gets, but we know LSU will not be underbid, put it that way.
There's no doubt about that. And I think that, that would certainly fit the mold of what I'm talking about. I just don't think it's going to be guys that we've been talking about now. I don't think Aranda goes to Baylor and leaves after a year, although I know LSU fans, like I said, would like it. There were rumors today about the cryptic tweet from Goofball at Ole Miss, with his Louisiana license plate. I mean, this is such a become a rat race. And, people are actually jumping on Scott Woodward now and saying, they're upset because there's no coach yet. And they lost at Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley didn't want to come here. You didn't lose him. He didn't want to come here. So I think it's still going to be a big name coach. I think it's going to be someone that will fit into this scheme. I think it's going to be someone that will help LSU get better in the future. But, I didn't realize it when I was watching the game the other night that LSU was 51. They're now 51-21, I believe, under Ed Ogeron. If you would have told me 6 years ago that Ed Ogeron was going to go 51-21 over the next 6 years, win a national championship, and get fired, I would have told you were out of your mind on both counts that neither was going to happen. And wow, I mean, it's kind of incredible what the standards are at LSU and how fans are a little bit unrealistic. Let's put it that way.
LSU not the only place for that either. It
There's
has just become a super duper arms race. Mel Tucker, who's had one winning season in his entire career, gets $9.5 million a year from Michigan State. Just crazy numbers being thrown around. And if you want a premium coach, the rumor is that USC gave Lincoln Riley a $110 million contract. They're private again, so it doesn't have to be publicized. But it wouldn't surprise me, and it means LSU is going to have to pay probably $12 million plus to get the guy that they want. And that's the world we're living in.
Yeah, they
will. We're also they will. They will. As I said, they will not be underbid. We're also living in a world in which Michigan beats Ohio State, which we can't say for a while. Devin, what do you make of that game and how impressive the Wolverines were?
Well, Michigan just beat up Ohio State up front, both sides of the ball. They were able to control the tempo of the game and pretty much just punch Ohio State in the mouth over and over again. And Ohio State had no answer. The two biggest games this season for Ohio State, they came up empty, on both sides of the ball. So I guess you can say that they made it easy for the committee to eliminate them. Their two biggest games, they couldn't do anything with it. Michigan, this is a big win for Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's been talked about as someone that's kind of overrated and can win the big game. He finally won it, so we'll see what happens with Michigan from here. Their defense certainly has enough talent to compete with some of these other top teams, but I just worry that their offense isn't going to be able to do much if they do make it into the playoff. But we'll see what happens as they play in the Big Ten Championship. But Michigan, they surprised everyone. And, I was a little worried there in the fourth quarter. Ohio State started making a rally and thought we were going to get a classic Michigan game, but they closed the door on Ohio State. So congrats to them and finally about to get some new blood in the college football playoff picture.
Certainly looks that way. Michigan and Iowa, really either way, even if Iowa upsets them, Iowa would have a chance to get in as a two-loss team, depending on what other chaos developed. Yeah, they've got a chance.
No way.
If it gets to the point where we're talking about,
I'll give you 20-1 odds right now.
Well, no.
I mean, it
would have to be more than that.
Iowa's not going to the playoffs.
I said a chance. I didn't say a good chance.
I've got a chance to be Pope, too, because I'm Catholic.
No, they have a better chance than that. I know you. You're not going to be the Pope.
You're right. They do have a slightly better chance than
that. The other big games on Saturday, Alabama beating Auburn in triple overtime. The ridiculously stupid triple overtime. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I put 3 overtimes. 4 ridiculously stupid 2-point conversion. Blah blah blah. We're going back and forth and doing penalty kicks. Somehow Alabama survived. They were 30-1 on the live money line when Auburn had the ball with 2 minutes left. Alabama was using its timeouts. Tank Bigsby runs out of bounds for some unknown reason on second down. Lets Alabama save 40 seconds. So instead of only having like 30 seconds left, they have 1 minute and 10 seconds. And they went 97 yards after not scoring a touchdown for 59 minutes. They went 97 yards to tie the game, and they win it in 4 overtimes. So that will go down in Iron Bowl history, Jim.
There's no question. And, you got to feel for it. TJ Finley couldn't even walk from like the last middle of the third quarter on, and what a gamer. And I'm not just saying this because I know the kid and I covered him for so long, and he's kind of dear to my heart a little bit, but he played his keister off, and so did Auburn. I mean, you got to give it to him, and it's just a heartbreaker for them to fall there. But Alabama keeps itself in position to where, in my opinion, as long as they don't get blown out by Georgia, they're in. I mean, we'll see. Money talks. And now if they lose by 3 touchdowns or so, you have to rethink depending on what's going on elsewhere. But I got to think Alabama's in. And not only do I think they're in, I think they're going to be like number 3, and they'll play whoever the 2. If Michigan wins this week, maybe they'll play Michigan in the first round, and Cincinnati will get Georgia. I don't know. But it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure. And I don't know. It's a heartbreaker for Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn's defense played about as well as you could
They
possibly
really
play
did.
for 3.5 quarters. Their offense seemed like it did just enough. They didn't do a lot, but the defense was spectacular, and then just could not keep them out when it counted the most. The other game in that equation will be the Big 12 title game, which Oklahoma State advanced to by beating Oklahoma 37-33, getting a push on the line. And Oklahoma State will play Baylor this weekend. Another reason why I think it's unlikely Dave Aranda comes to LSU is he's got a Big 12 championship game to play. And there's another team that if they should win, they're a 2-loss conference championship game, championship team. Depending on the chaos that happens elsewhere, does Baylor have a chance? It probably takes a Cincinnati loss, quite frankly, and an Alabama getting blown out for that to become part of the discussion. But it's at least a theoretical possibility.
Baylor has a better chance to get in than Iowa.
I think Iowa was ranked above them last week. Maybe not.
That means nothing.
That's true. It doesn't mean anything. Let's look at the NFL results real quick for the past week before we move on to looking ahead, because we do have a lot to talk about. Well, the Thursday night game, I know you dissected it on Datitude, Jim, quite a bit, but it was about as ugly gets. I mean, you say the Saints didn't have a chance to win with Trevor Siemian. They did the first couple of weeks. They had a chance to beat Atlanta. They had a chance to beat Tennessee. They had no chance this week. The wheels came off, and I don't know if that, partly it's Siemian, partly it's offensive line problems, partly it's not having Alvin Kamara or Mark Ingram, and then the defense, which in most of these games fights pretty valiantly for 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, and then they run out of gas too. It was just the perfect storm of ugliness.
I've come to the realization, I guess, the only logical explanation why Simeon's actually been in there. And it makes sense that Sean Payton just didn't realistically think his team had that bit of a chance to win. And maybe save him for the Cowboys, and you get more healthy, and you get Taysom Hill back, and maybe you get Alvin Kamara back, and why throw Taysom Hill into against the Wolves when you're not going to win the game and you're risking a chance on him to get hurt, and your only chance to make the playoffs the rest of the way is they don't have to win out, but they do have to probably win all but one going the rest of the way. Maybe you could lose 2. I don't know. But anyway, this just wasn't a game. It was the Bills get right game. It was easy to see. I said last week I didn't know if the Saints would score. If they did, I didn't think they would score more than a touchdown. They didn't. They were never in this game. And it's really sad because the defense played as well as they could play. They were on the field so long. That 31 next to the Bills is really kind of it's not, the Saints didn't play as bad as giving up 31 points. I think the defense did as well as they could do. They had 2 great interceptions, and they did what they could do. But we'll see what happens now going forward with some changes. And as far as the rest of the weekend goes, you really got to look at New England. And, I haven't given them enough credit going forward. Again, it's a Titans team that is banged up, but really it's a Titans team, the same Titans team that was banged up against the Saints, except they had A.J. Brown that beat the Saints. So New England's just doing what they have to do. I'm really looking forward to that Monday night game. I still lean towards Buffalo, but I've certainly got to pay attention, maybe go back and watch a few more Patriots games and see what I'm missing.
Yeah, and one thing about Buffalo, they lose Tre'Davious White in that game, torn ACL, out for the year, and that could be a big deal too, as Mac Jones seems to be finding his stride. So that'll be next Monday night. The other thing, and Devin, I want to give you a chance to talk too, but it's out here on the horizon. If you had to pick an AFC champ and an NFC champ right now, Tom Brady against Bill Belichick would not be out of the question. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you could do worse with your picks than Bucs Patriots for the Super Bowl. You really could.
Yeah, there are plenty of other scenarios you could explore, but that one seems at least the most intriguing, and 2 teams that seem to have caught their stride a bit. Patriots obviously playing well as of late, and the Bucs kind of getting back on their winning ways. They held off a tough Colts team, but the Colts, I think they're a sleeper team to watch going forward. Obviously they took down the Bills and beating some other teams right there with the Bucs. So the Colts are kind of a dark horse team at this point. Kind of remind me of the Titans from a couple of years ago when they made all the way to the AFC Championship game. Not great quarterback play, but a really solid running game. So I think the Colts are someone to watch in the AFC, but the Patriots and Bucs seem like a storybook type of game to pick for the Super Bowl for sure.
It would be in Hollywood. Well, it would be in Inglewood. It'd be close to Hollywood, and it would be a Hollywood type ending. I'm not sure
I
that the
can't.
public at large would be very happy with it, but
I can't deal with 2 weeks of that. I really can't deal with 2 weeks. I'd have to turn the TV off. I can't listen to it. I can't watch it, and I'm being serious. I mean, it would be over the top. They'd be showing it on all the national news stations and everything else. That's all they'd be talking about on national news for 2 weeks. I don't want to hear that.
I mean, I'm not one who watches a lot of pregame anyway, unless I'm doing it. So but I would watch the game. It would be an intriguing game. I'll put it that way.
Well, I'll watch it no matter who's in it. But I mean, oh God, I have to turn the sound off. Who's got the TV this year? It's NBC, right?
I believe that's correct. It was CBS last year.
Yeah, I could deal with Al Michaels. At least doesn't go too far over the top. But I could not listen to Joe Buck talking about just glowing over Bill Belichick and Tom Brady for 4 hours.
Oh,
I'd have to take
you
some
better root for an
nausea
upset
medicine.
because it's. I mean, seriously, if you had to pick right now, that's who you'd pick, right? I mean, if you had to pick,
That's not who I'd pick.
Conference.
I mean, if
put
you're
it
saying
this
if
way.
I had to pick,
yeah, I mean, okay, well, who's your Super Bowl? If you had to pick right now,
I don't see any. I got to be honest. I don't think New England. I still don't. I'm not sold on New England. I know I should be.
Yeah,
I know I should be, but I just can't be. And I think really at this point, I got to think the best team. I'm going to learn a lot about Kansas City next week when they play Denver. And I know Denver's not a great team, but they're pretty good defensively. So I'm not sure whether to buy in on the Chiefs now. But if you want to buy on the Chiefs, you probably can get them at a decent price. I don't know what they are, probably 800-900, I guess.
To win the AFC, the Chiefs are the favorite. They're plus 325 to win the AFC.
So what are they in the Super Bowl?
To win the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are plus 700.
You're not going to get them at a better price than that. So I think that, I don't know if I believe that the Chiefs are all the way back. The AFC is so muddled. I know this sounds crazy, but I still think Tennessee is the best team in the AFC. When they get towards the end of the season, if they get Derrick Henry back, which I think they're going to get Derrick Henry back, and AJ Brown's playing, and the defense is good enough. I still think Tennessee is going to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC.
If you give me the trio of Kansas City, New England, and Buffalo, I'll take that all day against Tennessee. I'll take those three against the field. I'll take those three against the field. Put it that way.
I mean, I'm not giving you the field, and I'm taking Tennessee. But look, to me, it's one of those two teams. I think it's Kansas City or Tennessee, and I want to know if Kansas City's for real. I'm not sold yet, but if they are back to normal or semi-normal or one notch below what they've been, then I'm not betting against them because I think they're going to the Super Bowl. They're clearly have the most talent in the AFC. But then in the NFC, you got to let Green Bay right now, right? I mean, their defense is playing good enough, and Aaron Rodgers seems to be on a mission. And they've had some injuries too, and it doesn't really matter to that dude. He just finds a way. And right now, I'd probably take Green Bay in the NFC.
I mean, it's not a bad call. And Devin, let's skip one slide and go to the NFC playoffs here. Because while we're on the topic, let's talk about the NFC playoffs. So what I did with this was that we're going to give the top 5 teams their spots. None of them have clinched yet, but we're going to give the Rams, Cardinals, Bucks, Packers, and Cowboys all playoff spots. So that leaves 2 spots. Right now, the 49ers are in the 6th seed and the Vikings are in the 7th seed, but they're tied with a few other teams. I didn't even fit everybody on here. The Bears and Giants technically still have a chance too. These are your odds for making the playoffs. The 49ers have quickly become pretty likely to make it now. They've got a game on the field. They're playing well. They're healthy again. They're minus 250. The next spot's the Vikings at minus 110, then the Eagles, and the Saints are still kind of hanging out there, plus 280 with a chance. And, I think that goes to show you, yes, they play the Cowboys this week. They still have a trip to Tampa Bay. But other than that, their schedule is not too bad down the stretch. And if the Saints could get Taysom Hill in there and get that offense productive and get healthy, most importantly, they still have a shot at this. But, Devin, you first. When you look at this list, what sticks out to you?
I think the Eagles are overvalued on this list. I understand that they beat the Saints and they've kind of been up and down all season, but I don't know how you give the Eagles a better chance than the Saints to make the playoffs. That was the one that stood out to me immediately. Not to say that the Eagles are bad. I don't think they're horrible, but they certainly haven't separated themselves either. And they just feel like a team that, is kind of overachieving at this point of their development. And I think that has to do with their new coach. But I just don't see how the Eagles have the third highest odds to make the playoffs. They just do not feel like a playoff team when you watch that team. I understand they beat the Saints soundly, but I mean they stunk it up against the Giants. They lost to I know the Saints lost to the Giants as well, but their offense couldn't do anything against New York's defense. So I just don't see that one and don't agree with it necessarily. But 49ers and Vikings are playing some of the best football right now. So either of those two teams could certainly lock up a playoff spot. So the Saints have to start winning like now because catching at this point, it seems like they're going to be catching the Vikings because the 49ers seem like they're going to be a playoff team as well.
Yeah, my one counterpoint to that, Devin, would be that the Eagles' schedule, if you look at it, they've got the Jets, they've got a bye week, then they've got Washington, the Giants again, and Washington again. And then they end with the Cowboys at home, but the Cowboys may not have anything to play for at that point. So the schedule really sets up well for the Eagles to make a run. But I agree with you. I don't know that they are good enough to take advantage of that, especially after watching them yesterday. Jim, thoughts on the Saints or anything else here?
I think this is a great value for the Saints. Finally, the Saints have been in the minuses or have been, I think they were plus 140 going into last week. Not a good value. So you're basically saying 3-1 chance the Saints make the playoffs. If you play this season out, assuming that Taysom is coming in, he's going to play the rest of the year, and assuming that Alvin Kamara is healthy or not healthy, but he's going to play and be effective. So when you're making bets, you have to make assumptions. I mean, so we can do that. You can't do that as a sports writer, as a regular beat writer, but you can do that as a betting writer. I'm going to assume those things are true. And in that case, if you play this season out 3 times, I think the Saints are in the playoffs at least once. And it's going to come down a lot, especially if they win this week. And if they win this week, their odds are going to drop significantly. So I think that's a great value on the Saints. I really like them. If I had to pick 2 teams off of this list going forward, it's tough because I think the 49ers are playing such great football right now, but I just have a tough time believing in Jimmy G. And now Debo might be banged up, and without him, they're in deep trouble.
Minus 250 is a steep price too.
That is really a steep price. So, you know what? I'm gonna say Vikings and Saints off this list because you look at the Vikings schedule, and they ought to have 3 wins in a row coming up against the Lions, Steelers, and Bears. Then they got to figure out a way to beat either the Rams or the Packers, and they finish up with the Bears. So I like the Vikings schedule going down the road. I think they're probably the best team on this list, even though they lost to the 49ers yesterday. So, but don't count the Saints out. I'm not saying they get in, but at that number, I definitely put a little bit on that.
The Vikings without Dalvin Cook at least for a few weeks, if not more, with a torn labrum in his shoulder as well.
Right, but Alexander Madison is just fine. So
that's true. He is good, and for fantasy purposes, the fantasy roundup tomorrow, we'll talk about that. He's definitely a guy to look for if he's out there. Interesting, you see the Seahawks here at plus 1,000, and you said you think they maybe have a chance at making a run. Schedule-wise, doesn't set up real well for them. But if Russell is healthy and they can get back to winning some shootouts, maybe a long shot there.
Yeah, I mean, a 10-1, sure. But yeah, they certainly have to win tonight. They'd have to beat the 49ers to get them at home. But you look at it, really, I mean, I don't know if their schedule is all that tough if you think about it, because if you can win tonight and you can beat the 49ers at home, which I think is certainly possible, then you got Houston. We don't know what's going on with the Rams, but then you finish with Bears, Lions, and the Cardinals, who may not have anything to play for by then.
No, that's true.
They may have it all wrapped up. So the Seahawks aren't in that bad of a spot, and especially at 10-1, I definitely think if you played this season out 10 times that they would make it at least once or twice. So I wouldn't put any money on the Falcons, Panthers, or the football team. I don't think those 3 teams have a shot at all. But yeah, if you were taking a long shot, I would go with Seattle.
These odds, by the way, are via Caesar Sportsbook, and you can sign up for the Sportsbook and look at all the odds and be ready for betting by going to NOLA.com/Caesars and signing up for those for the mobile app, and get your $100 bonus and get all set to go. Let's switch gears here and go back to the college side of things. After all the dust cleared from the weekend, here are your CFP Championship odds, and the number in parentheses is what they were last week. So, of course, you see the big movers, Michigan and Oklahoma State, had those huge wins in their rivalry games, going from 50-1 to 10-1 for Michigan and 60-1 to 14-1 for Oklahoma State. Cincinnati and Notre Dame also take big moves up. Ohio State's still on the list, but way down. And, of course, Georgia just your number's looking better and better, Jim. I know you bet them a couple of months ago, and they just keep going down in those odds.
Got them at plus 125, and these numbers, I wouldn't bet Georgia now. I think you missed the boat. I would just wait until and see what happens, and maybe you can get a decent line when the game hits, but depending on who they play. But I will say this. It shows what the lines makers think about who's going to the playoffs, right? They think Michigan and Oklahoma State are going. They think Alabama's going because obviously they don't think Alabama. I mean, nobody thinks Alabama's going to win this, right? I mean, of course, Alabama fans think they're going to win. But realistically, a 6.5-point underdog, it's tough to think they're going to win. I don't think they match up well with Georgia, period. But unless they get blown out, I think they're going. And it also goes to show Cincinnati's still at 18-1. And I get that even if they make it, their chances of winning the national championship are still probably 18-1. But, I just got to go with Vegas is looking at, and I think they're pretty spot on probably with the top four there. I think there's a good chance that those top four are the top four when all is said and done, assuming they all win. And that is a big assumption because I'm not so certain Michigan's going to win, and I'm definitely not sure Oklahoma State's going to win.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I didn't have room on here to put them on there, but Iowa and Baylor, the two teams we mentioned, were on there, I believe, at 100-1. So they're still listed, and I think Wake Forest might have been listed at like 150-1 or something. But realistically, these are your 7 teams that have a chance, and I think you can almost scratch Ohio State off. And Notre Dame's really blocked because they lost to Cincinnati straight up, and so it's hard to make the argument that they go in over Cincinnati, and that is the one. Yeah, that's the one difference this year between all the previous years when they didn't let a group of 5 team in, is that Cincinnati has that head-to-head victory over a fellow playoff contender. So we'll see what happens. But Cincinnati down to 18-1. Again, they got to get in, and even if they do get in, probably not a great chance to beat Georgia and then beat whoever survives the other semifinal. Just doesn't seem like a great chance. But it's interesting. So if we're on the same page and saying Georgia at this point, don't bet them because you get better money. You would make more money betting on them on the money line in the semifinal and then rolling it over and betting your winnings in the championship game at this point than you would betting a minus 220, I think. So just hold off on Georgia. But besides that, Devin, who else sticks out to you on this list?
I would probably say either Bama or Cincinnati. The thing with Bama is all they have to do is keep it within a score or two, and I think they get in the playoff realistically. Just because, I mean, your losses are to Texas A&M and Georgia by a score or two, so I think they can be. And now also depends on the game, so I don't know if I would bet them at this very moment. I would probably wait to see what happens in the game, but if I had to pick one, probably Cincinnati still. Just because they're still a long shot, but this has been a wild season. Crazy things have happened all season long, and they have a chance. That if they get in, they have a chance. So I would probably say Cincinnati is the best value on this board.
Yeah, and I'll add one more. And I said this last week, and obviously they were better value last week. But Michigan, even at 10-1, if you're looking for a team that can compete on the line of scrimmage with Georgia, and if it comes to that, Alabama, Michigan is your team. They've got the horses up front on offense and defense. They showed it against Ohio State. And that's what football comes down to at the higher levels, is who can win. Well, at any level, who can win up front. Michigan is the team that can compete up front. And at 10-1, I think that's still decent value. Of course, I liked it better last week, but you had to think they were going to beat Ohio State, which I wasn't too sure of. now that they're past that hurdle, I think Michigan has a lot of value here at 10-1 as well.
Zach, couldn't you just see them spitting the bit? They put every ounce of energy they have into beating Ohio State. It's all they thought about for a month. It's all they cared about for a month. And now the crescendo is hit. They're going down, and Iowa has nothing to lose. And Iowa's got a great defense, and I could just see Iowa punching them in the mouth and them not figuring out how to recover. It would be hilarious.
It's a fair counterpoint. I don't think Iowa can win that game without multiple Michigan turnovers, but that could happen. There could be multiple Michigan turnovers. So, I mean, it's certainly possible. And it just has the feeling of one of those 17-13 Big Ten slugfests, and Michigan's just going to have to survive that thing. I'll tell you what, with 10.5 points, I'd take Iowa because I just don't see it being a blowout. I just don't see it.
What happens if Michigan loses, Cincinnati loses, and Oklahoma State loses, and Alabama gets blown out? All four of those things are possible.
I'm telling you, man, Iowa. I'm telling you, Iowa has a chance if all four of those things happen.
How about Iowa, Baylor, Georgia, and I don't know, Notre Dame?
Keep it,
boy.
Keep it.
I might go play. Look, I got to cover for you.
You.
I got to cover for you Thursday at Harris. Maybe I'll go put me down a little 14 money line parlay. I'm sure it would pay pretty well.
Bet it for $1 and see how much you get back.
I don't bet anything for $1.
All right.
Except when our teaser bet. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, that one's getting close. We'll talk about big bucks. You didn't have a good week. You did not have a good week, but you did win your teaser.
Yeah,
so you're getting close to even money on that one. Speaking of looking ahead, let's look ahead. I'm going to be out of state on Thursday, so Jim is the one who will be at Harrah's. I'm going to try to join the show remotely, but we do have just a fantastic championship week in college football. Of course, the big ones in Atlanta, the SEC championship game, Georgia laying 6.5 against the Crimson Tide. We talked about Michigan, Cincinnati, same line against Houston in the American Conference Championship. Sneaky good game there, by the way. Houston, a top 25 team. Oklahoma State's -5 against Baylor. And then for the local flavor, we got you the Sun Belt Championship. App State, a road favorite by 3 points, even though they lost to UL earlier this year. And then in the FCS playoffs, Southeastern hitting the road to face a national powerhouse in James Madison, and it's James Madison -15, guys.
Yeah, the UL line to me is a little bit strange because if I'm not mistaken, I think App State was favored in the game earlier this year too, and they got blown off the field by the Raging Cajuns. I think UL should be favored in this one. I understand App State, they have a tradition to win the Sun Belt Championship, but you got to think with Billy Napier probably coaching his final game at UL that they're going to come out ready to play emotional. So, well, not problem. My bad. Not probably. He will be coaching his final game. In the Sun Belt Championship. So
that's always an interesting one. Are they going to be fired up to play for their coach, or is it a big distraction that he's leaving? I mean, you just never know which side of the coin that one's going to fall
on. I feel like it's probably going to be the former. I think they're going to be juiced up, ready to play for him because. I mean, they have to know that this is a big time opportunity for him. He's turned UL into a really good program in just a few years. So I have a feeling that they're going to come out ready to play and try to send them out on a good note.
I agree with Devin's. Yeah, I agree with Devin on that, but I don't know that it matters. That's not a game that I'm going to touch. I agree the line is a little weird, so I probably wouldn't touch it, but. I will say that the other 4 games, other than Georgia, I think Georgia's so head and shoulders better than Alabama. And I wish last week, Alabama would have played better so we'd have a better line. But I just don't think Alabama can hang with Georgia. I just don't. I don't see how they can score on them. And even with the weapons that they have, I'm looking forward to this game, but I would definitely take Georgia. The other 3 big ones, I like all the underdogs. And I think Houston's going to win. I have this sneaky suspicion Houston's going to win straight up. I just do. Luke Fickell rumors. Cincinnati is we've seen them in games away from home where they haven't played all that well. And I think this is a chance for them to spit the bit. And a lot of talk on them the past 6 weeks. I like Houston.
All right. And you may be looking at that chaos scenario. I don't know. I will say this on Georgia, Alabama. The look-ahead line a month ago was Georgia -3. So it has moved a bunch in that month. And granted, Alabama hadn't played real well in that month. But that's a lot of movement for a look-ahead line without a major injury taking place. So 6.5 points. I don't know. The last time Alabama was an underdog. Anybody want to take a guess at that?
When's the last time Alabama was this bad?
Alabama
and they're not bad, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I hear you. They're not bad. They're number 3 in the nation. That's all. No, they were a 1-point underdog to Georgia in November of 2015, 92 games ago. That was the last time Alabama was an underdog, and they beat Georgia in that game. So again, different year, totally different teams, all of that. But this is, I don't know the last time. The last time they were an underdog by more than 6 points, my guess, and I'm going just on a guess, would be against Tim Tebow's Florida team in that SEC championship game back in 2008, which Alabama also won, by the way. So
I'll say this on that. You know, every other year or so, you get a team like LSU a couple years ago, a team of destiny, right? I mean, well, you just feel like this is their year, and you'd be very surprised if they don't win. And not just because Georgia's been as good as they have been, but Georgia just feels like that team that's on a mission and is destined to win. And I'm not betting against a team like that. I'll either not bet or I'm betting on Georgia, one of the two. And this week, I happen to like Georgia. I've already placed a wager. I think 6.5 is a great line because this is the one time where Alabama is not going to get love from the casual drunk Joes and Aunt Mabels out there who just bet on Alabama no matter what the spread is. I think this is one time when that's not going to happen. And I think you're going to see a good bit of the money on Georgia. I wouldn't be surprised me at all if 65, 70% of the money is on Georgia when all is said and done.
We'll wrap it up on odds and ends here with a look ahead at the NFL next week. Starting with the Thursday night game, the Saints are in action on Thursday again, this time against the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys -5.5. That was at 1 o'clock. It's already down to 5, and it's been moving down all week. The Cowboys with some COVID issues. The Saints getting healthier, looking like they're going to start Taysom Hill. So that line's shifting the Saints' way. Other than that, Chargers, Bengals, who would have thought that'd be a big AFC playoff battle? Cardinals laying a touchdown in Chicago. Ravens, Steelers, always a great AFC North battle. Broncos, Chiefs, always a great AFC West battle. And then, of course, the Monday night game, Bills -3. What do you guys see here?
Can anyone explain to me why the Ravens are only a 3.5-point favorite over an awful football team? I mean, Pittsburgh's just awful right now. They're in a complete mess. I mean, I said last week the Steelers are going to be underdogs the rest of the season. And when do you see that? I mean, they may not win another game. And look, Lamar Jackson can be the greatest thing since sliced bread, or he can be the most awful thing since moldy bread. I mean, you never know what you're going to get. But I don't see how this Ravens team just doesn't roll over Pittsburgh, especially when they need to kick it in a high gear, because I think they're clearly the best team in that division.
I mean, they didn't inspire any confidence last night.
No, they did not. First time, and they were teams that had thrown 4 interceptions in a game since 2015 were 0-52 going into last night. And somehow it says a lot about Cleveland too.
He threw 3 in 1 quarter. I think it was
3
a
in
back-to-back
like 2 minutes.
drives. Yeah, it was. I mean,
back-to-back drives.
That was the only part of that game I watched. After that, I said I can't watch anymore. Devin, what are you looking forward to on this list?
Patriots Bills got to be the marquee matchup of the week. These are two teams that they're both starting to play their best football towards the end here, and the Bills finally got back to their winning ways, and this could decide the AFC East. And if the Patriots win, they or I believe 2 games up on the Bills if they win.
Yep.
So this is a very important game for both teams in the playoff picture. Because, I mean, if you're the Bills, you got to win this one to not only stay paced to win the AFC East, but to get home field advantage in the playoffs. Because we know how they look on the road versus how they play at home. So it's going to be important for them. And then the Patriots are seem like they're back to being a machine. Defense is playing some of their best ball since probably a couple years ago, and it's got to be the matchup of the week for sure. I'm surprised the Bills were favored in this one. I will say I thought the Patriots were going to come out as favorites because of how much people are loving them and how much they've been winning lately. So it's definitely an interesting line to watch and see if it moves one way or the other throughout the course of the week.
The Bills have been the power rankings favorite in Vegas all season long, and so I'm not surprised to see them favored at home. But really, it's barely more than your home field advantage. So it's on a neutral field, it'd be a pick 'em, which goes to show you how much the Patriots. So imagine being a Bills fan, and for your basically your entire adult life, if you're say late 30s, early 40s, you've been beating your head against the Patriots wall. You got 1 year away from that, where you were clearly the better team, and now you got to go right back to it, worrying about the Patriots again and chasing the Patriots, even after Tom Brady leaves. Just tough existence, although most of the Bills fans that I saw on Thursday night at the Dome were not thinking about that. They were pretty happy.
I think that line is low. I'm not sure who I'm going to pick yet, but I'm the opposite. I was surprised it was 3. I thought it'd be 5. You talk about the Bills being at the top of the power in the AFC. They have become almost Chiefs territory as far as love amongst bettors who just blindly bet teams. And the Bills are certainly one of those teams that get blindly bet. And I know the Patriots are on a win streak and they're on top, but if you're thinking like a lines maker, that's one I missed. I'm usually within a point one way or the other, but I was off by a couple here. I don't get that line at all.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Also interesting, by the way, today, just to change the subject real quick before we go, the baseball hot stove season is scalding right now, and the
not if you're a Cubs fan.
Well, sorry, the collective. You had 2016. Sit down now. The collective bargaining agreement expires on Wednesday, and so a lot of deals getting done today, so they can get physicals done and get pen to paper before Wednesday. The Rangers, I mean, my goodness, they signed Corey Seager to a $325 million deal right after they signed Marcus Semien from the Blue Jays. They also got Jonathan Gray from the Rockies. My Mariners signed Robbie Ray, the Cy Young Award winner. Max Scherzer going to the Mets on a 3-year deal for a 38-year-old. So it has been a hot stove, and I'm looking forward in the next week or so. We're going to get some World Series odds out and talk about where everything lands as they go into a probable lockout, at least for a few weeks, and we'll see where everything emerges after that. But it's fascinating offseason in Major League Baseball as well. But for now, we're all football all the time. Give me a final thought, gentlemen. Devin, starting with you on the Saints or on tonight's game or on the college football playoff picture.
Well, for tonight's game, I just hope we get some better football than last night, and I'll just keep it at that.
Cannot be any worse. It cannot be any worse. Jim, how about you?
My final thought has nothing to do with any of this. It's December 11th is a big vote in St. Tammany Parish, and if you live in St. Tammany Parish or have friends or family in St. Tammany Parish, make sure they go out and vote yes for the casino, because don't believe all these things you're hearing. I saw some just ridiculous lies today about what the casino would do to the parish and all the haters up here, but it's something that needs to be done, and it could really help this parish. As a resident of St. Tammany for 11 years now, it's something that is very much needed, not just because I want to go to a casino that's not in Mississippi or drive across the lake, but because of all the great things it can do to this in this parish, and will be very family friendly for those who don't know that, and a chance to get away and not have to drive 50, 60 miles to do it.
All right, and just to add to that, you can get on the mobile app, Caesars mobile app, and get ready for mobile betting, which we expect to be here in the next month or so. NOLA.com/Caesars is your destination for that. You can get our bonus. You can get ready to go. You can deposit money and get everything ready to go for when they say the word go, you can go. So NOLA.com/Caesars. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Odds and Ends for Week 13 of the NFL season on Monday, November the 29th. Devin Jackson and Jim Derry there. I'm Zach Ewing, and we'll see you next time.